I, 32 am a civil engineer, and for the last 8 years, I've been the one holding the structural integrity of my family together. My wife, 30F, and I have been married for 6, and we have a 5-year-old daughter. For the last few years, I've been working 50-plus hours a week while she spent my overtime pay and a small inheritance I got from my granddad on finding herself. She went through about 4 different boutique business phases: pottery, consulting, lifestyle branding, all of which were just black holes for my money. I need to make one thing clear. I own her house. My grandfather left it specifically to me in his will as a premarital asset. I never put her name on the deed, even though she spent years suggesting we should protect our family's future by doing so. My lawyer told me back then to keep my assets separate, and thank God I listened to him. Things went south about 6 months ago. She became distant, guarded her phone like it held nuclear codes, and started acting like my life was beneath her. She'd tell me I was boring and that I smelled like concrete and sweat while she was out having networking lunches with people she met at her high-end gym. The breaking point happened on a Tuesday. I got rained out of a site inspection and came home early. I walked in quietly and heard her in the kitchen on a call. She didn't hear me. She was laughing and said, "He's just a provider, babe. Once the renovations are done and the equity is up, I'll figure out the exit. He's too obsessed with his blueprints to notice a fire in his own living room." I walked into the kitchen and just set my keys on the counter. She nearly jumped out of her skin. The color drained from her face for a second, but then she got this look of pure entitlement. Instead of apologizing, she snapped at me for sneaking up on her in her own home. I told her, "It's my home." And I heard enough. "Who was that?" She didn't even flinch. She told me it was a friend who actually listened to her. Then she dropped the line that changed everything. She crossed her arms and said, "Careful. I have options. I have people lined up who would give me the life I actually deserve. If you make this difficult, I'll take the house, the kid, and half your checks for the next 18 years. I have options, and you're just a paycheck." I looked at her and felt nothing. No anger, just clarity. I said, "Use them." She was confused for a second, so I repeated it. "You have options? Use them. Get out. We're done." She laughed in my face. She told me she wasn't going anywhere and that if I tried to kick her out, she'd call the cops and tell them I was abusive. She literally threatened to get a restraining order based on a lie just to keep the house. She told me she was going to her options house for the night and that my stuff better be on the lawn by morning or she was calling the police. The second she slammed the door, I went to work. I had recorded the entire conversation on my phone. In my state, we have one-party consent, so that recording was gold. I called my lawyer, and by 7 a.m. the next day, I had a team ready. I installed 4K security cameras in all the common areas and entrances. If she was going to stage a domestic violence scene, I was going to have it in high definition. My brother, who is a professional process server, showed up with the divorce papers and a temporary kick-out order. Because I had a recording of her threatening to manufacture a crime to steal my property, a judge signed off on an emergency order to remove her from the house for my safety. Around noon, she pulled up. She wasn't alone. Some guy in a leased European SUV followed her in. This was the option. He looked at my house like he already owned it. They walked in like they ran the place. She saw the cameras and started screaming, telling me to get out. I handed her the papers. My brother told her she'd been served and that the judge had granted a kick-out order. I told her she had 30 minutes to pack her essentials or the cops, who were on standby, would escort her out in cuffs. They option tried to act tough, telling me to keep it civil. I looked him up and down and told him he was trespassing. I also told him I'd pulled his public records. He was being sued for millions in fraud by former investors. He wasn't a rich entrepreneur. He was a broke grifter. My wife's face went white. She looked at him, expecting him to defend her, but he just started backing toward the door. He didn't want any part of a legal mess. She went into a total meltdown. She started trying to grab my grandmother's heirloom jewelry and the good silverware. I told her if she walked out with those, I'd add grand larceny to the filing. She threw a necklace at me, grabbed 2 suitcases, and stormed out. Her option didn't even help her with the bags. He just popped the trunk and sat in the car. As they drove off, I knew she'd double down. A few days later, her lawyer, some bottom-tier ambulance chaser, filed for emergency spousal support and half the business. She claimed she was a silent partner in my engineering firm because she consulted on projects. Her consultation was literally just picking out office furniture. We got to the first hearing, and she put on a huge performance. She wore black and pretended to cry, acting like I'd abandoned her. Her lawyer told the judge I was financially abusive for cutting off the joint credit cards she was using to buy her boyfriend dinner. My lawyer just handed over the USB drive. We played the recording of her admitting she was going to lie to the police. The judge's face went stone cold. Then we showed the bank statements of her blowing $40,000 of our savings on her boyfriend. Then, the knockout blow, I produced the premarital agreement she'd signed 6 years ago. It clearly stated the house and the business were my separate property. She had lied to her own lawyer and told him no such document existed. The judge was done. She denied the support, denied the house, and ordered my wife to undergo a psych eval before she could even have supervised visits with our daughter. But the best part? The option had called me the night before. He was so terrified of being caught in a fraud investigation that he offered to testify against her. He took the stand and admitted she'd been planning to drain the engineer and move to Florida. He admitted she coached him on what to say to the police. It was a total bloodbath. The final judgment was better than I imagined. The judge ordered her to pay back the $42,000 she'd spent on her boyfriend. I got primary custody of our daughter. She got nothing. No house, no business, no option. As I was leaving the courthouse, she caught me in the hall. She was shaking and begging. She told me the guy's penthouse was an Airbnb he got kicked out of and that she was living in a motel. She asked to come back to the guest room and promised to be a good wife. I just looked at her and said, "You told me you had options. You used them. This is what they were worth." I walked away and haven't looked back. My daughter and I are finally living in a home that feels like a home. She's working 2 retail jobs now just to pay off the judgment and live in a tiny studio apartment. Turns out, the options aren't so great when you're the one who has to pay for them. If you think she got exactly what she deserved, hit that subscribe button. It's a much better option than the one she picked. Should I share the transcripts from when her option turned on her in court?